What's the immediate impact of tonight's news out of Baghdad with action by the U.S. after days of growing tensions in the region? Let's discuss with the Deputy Director of the U.S. Office of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, Alireza Jafarzadeh, and a survivor of that attack in Benghazi in 2012. Mark Geist, and he is joined, we understand, tonight by his service dog, Roan. Great to have you all with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shannon. Appreciate it.
Mark, I want to start with you. I wonder how this appeared to you, what your emotions were, what your analysis was, seeing what happened at the embassy just a couple of days ago, and how this administration responded.
You know, what we saw here was a group that has been allied with Iran, who has been trained by Iran's Qods forces and has American blood on their hands. I mean, they are the first group that really started utilizing the EFPs, the electronic force penetrators, that killed numbers of, you know, somewhere in the 600, 700 number of military service members. You know, when they launched 30 rockets in Kirkuk, killing a U.S. contractor. And our response was appropriate. We had to let them know that, you know, you're not going to deal with this. You are not going to be a terrorist organization and attack Americans and kill American service members. You saw them use the ruse, is what I call it, of mourning the death of those 25 that were killed, to gain access into the green zone, to utilize that and attack our embassy. And the president, I mean, he did exactly what he should have done, and he responded forcefully, immediately, but also with the right restraint at the time to protect the forces that were there.
Okay, I want to play something from Wendy Sherman from the Obama administration. She was a Deputy Secretary of State. Of course, she was part of putting together the Iran nuclear deal. She wrote a piece this week ripping President Trump, saying this lies at his feet, essentially, that he brought us to this point. Now, that piece was written before tonight's strike that took out Soleimani. Here's what she said after word of the strike surfaced.
That, in my view, very painfully, it is President Trump's withdrawal from the Iran nuclear agreement that started a series of steps that have led us to this day.
Alireza, your reaction?
First of all, what you've seen the past few weeks or months in Iraq, and particularly the past week, has nothing to do with the Iranian nuclear deal. It has everything to do with the intentions and the operations and the agenda of the Iranian regime in Iraq and in the whole region. Remember what Qassem Soleimani, that we're talking about him today, has done in Iraq. It dates back to early days, back to 2004, 2005. Those EFPs that penetrate through armor and were the #1 killer of American forces were prepared by the Qods Force, headed by Qassem Soleimani, and shipped across the border over over a decade. Qassem Soleimani was the most notorious criminal. He was evil. He has the blood of hundreds of thousands of people, both in Iran, in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, and other places. So trying to basically portray what the Iran regime's operations is conducting in Iraq as something as a result of someone else's fault is totally inaccurate. The fact of the matter is that what you saw in front of the embassy, American embassy, there were no protests there. That was a military march by the proxies of the Iran regime, the Hasht Shabi, which were created, funded, trained by the Iran regime, including Qassem Soleimani. And this has been going on for a long time. The real reality about Iraq is the people of Iraq who have been protesting against the Iran regime's influence, specifically naming Qassem Soleimani since last October in their protest acts all over Iraq, from Tahrir Square in Baghdad to Najaf and Karbala in Basra, the Shia majority population there. They're all turning against the Iran regime's influence, against Qassem Soleimani, and against his top arm in Iraq, Abu Mehdi Mohandes, who was basically running the Shia militia operations in Iraq. This is the reality of Iraq, and that cannot be overseen. But also remember, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is the Iranian regime and their rule in Tehran, because the regime is in big trouble. The regime is facing a lot of protests by the Iranian people. Back in November, there were protests in 191 cities. The regime killed 1,500 people and arrested 12,000 people. So this regime is weak, is vulnerable, they're desperate. That's why they're making these actions. And I think today's action, the elimination of Qassem Soleimani, is a good news. It's a big blow to the Iranian regime, the biggest blow in a long, long time. It's going to change the whole equation. It's a game changer, and it's going to go to the right direction.
Okay, Mark, I very quickly want to give you a quick final word here, because I want to ask about your reaction to a lot of the folks that we're seeing out there tonight, senators, political candidates, and others saying that this was an unnecessary provocation. The president may have been doing this as a distraction from domestic issues, and that people there serving the region, you were there for years, Mark, that they're now in danger. What do you say?
You know, it's really sad for me as a service member, as a private security contractor, having served this country for so many years, that our politicians are so filled with hate that instead of seeing that Iran is the tyrannical, the tyranny of that they are, that they kill their own people, they kill thousands of Americans in Iraq, and instead of condemning the criminality of what they do, they want to stand behind and say that it's inappropriate action. Well, you know, what we have now is we have a president who isn't afraid to do what needs to be done, isn't afraid to do the right thing, who is going to take a measured, strategic look at things, and he's going to do what needs to happen. And killing terrorists, killing people who are killing Americans sends a message to the rest of the world. I mean, currently we have Iran, China, and Russia doing, joint exercises in the Persian Gulf. This sends a message to them as well, and it also sends, on the positive side, as was just recently said, was to the Iranian people, to the Iraqi people who want to have their own country, they want to have a say in what goes on in their own countries. And this is what has to happen.
Yeah, it's a clear message to them and to leaders around the world. Mark, thank you for your service. Alireza, thank you both for joining us tonight. Good to see you.
Thank you so much, Shannon.
All right, fresh analysis coming off the targeting of that top Iranian commander in Iraq by U.S. forces. What's next? Plus, new